This is Bulletproof, where Hollywood scandals meet real detective work. I'm Steve Stanulis, former NYPD officer, celebrity bodyguard, and private investigator. Unlike other true crime podcasts, these aren't cold cases. These are active celebrity crime investigations happening right now. From Diddy's inner circle to A-list scandals. I've been there, and I'm exposing the celebrity secrets you've never heard.
All right, welcome to Bulletproof Podcast. I'm Steve Stanulis. Today we're going to cut past the headlines and get straight to the truth with Dr. Jeff Kieliszewski. I got it?
Kieliszewski, close enough. That's close enough.
Kieliszewski. Dr. Jeff Kieliszewski. So, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, again, you have a very impressive resume. Most of all, what intrigues me is you're a forensic psychologist. So I have so many questions about forensic psychology, how you get into it, how you go into someone's mind and opinions on a lot of headlining things that are kind of are in the headlines today.
Yeah.
So I looked at a couple of your things on Instagram. I love what you're talking about because this is what people want to hear.
Yeah.
So before we get into that, Jeff, let's get into how you even got into forensic psychology.
Yeah, it was interesting how that all happened. So I was a graduate student. I went to the University of Iowa, and I had a master's degree when I got there. And I lived in Chicago for a few years and worked in inpatient psychiatric facilities. So when I got out to Iowa and I'm there working for my PhD, one of the things that you'd have to do is called assistantships. Basically, you get paid. You could do research assistantships or clinical assistantships. And my advisor, a guy named John Westefeld, great guy, said to me, "Hey, Jeff, I think you should go out to the prison and do an assistantship out there." And I said, "Well, why? They need..."
Well, let me stop you there, Jeff. Wait, hold on one second.
Yeah.
Jeff. What I want to stop you there is, it's funny you said that because we had a forensic psychologist on a few days ago.
Yeah.
And that first thing they did when they decided that's what they wanted to do was go to a prison.
Yeah.
So it's funny you said that because you're the second person we had on in this field that said the same exact thing.
Right. And so John said, "Well, you already have a master's degree. You've got some clinical experience," which was different than a lot of the other PhD students there. And they need people to do intake psychological evaluations. And I said, "John, I don't know. I don't want to go work at a prison." He goes, "No, I think you'd fit well out there, Jeff." To this day, I still don't know what that means. But what happened is I went out there and it was an intake prison for the Iowa Department of Corrections. And I got hooked and I was fascinated. And I ended up doing 3 years there, working there 3 years while I was in graduate school. And then I went in, and part of your PhD in psychology when you're going to be a clinician is you need to do a year internship. So I went on to the Federal Bureau of Prisons Medical Center in Lexington, Kentucky. And that's where I did my year internship as part of my doctorate. And sort of off and running from there. And I came back to my home state of Michigan, started working for the Department of Corrections and the Department of the Bureau of Forensic Mental Health. And I did that for a few years. So I was in prison psychology for 7 years. And then I went into private practice. And it's been a busy career, and I'm not bored after almost 30 years of this.
What would you say is the biggest misconception? When I say misconception, obviously when you get into a field, you always think whether it's from watching a TV show, speaking to other people. When you first got in, what did you think it was to what it really is? Was there any difference?
There's a couple misconceptions, right? So I, sort of jumped into it and, moved, all the way into private practice now. So what the media portrays is what a forensic psychologist does versus what really happens. What my perceptions of what it was going to be like are a bit different too. So, some of the biggest differences, Steve, are when I do a lot of talks, I was a professor for a number of years, adjunct, and on my YouTube channel, people think that a forensic psychologist gets a gun and you chase criminals around the street. Well, that's not it at all.
Right. Right.
It's really and it's really a very technical job because you're trained in psychology and law, because at its core, the definition of forensic psychology is application of psychological science to legal issues. So in my job, a lot of what I have to do is I have to look at a statute, like, for example, a statute for competency to stand trial. And then I have to develop a question that I answer for the court through my psychological evaluation for them to determine, for example, if someone's competent to stand trial. So it's very technical. Most of the time you're working with a statute, but sometimes it's not. For example, I'll be hired to do sex offender risk assessment for sentencing. Well, there's no statute that talks about how to do that, so you have to go to the research literature to understand how to assess risk. And then you do the report, you go to court and testify, and now the court can make an informed decision about, how do we sentence this guy? How long do we put him away? Or is this a case where he's very low risk and maybe we want to go with probation, intense supervised probation?
I had asked this question of recently, again, to another, I'm getting good. I'm becoming friends with a lot of forensic psychologists. I'm diversifying my portfolio of people.
There you go.
Have you ever had a case, right, where, again, we won't say what a case. I'll create a case, but
right.
we'll apply it to one of your cases. So you had a murder case. We'll just say a murder case, where you had a preconception of, before you interviewed that person, and when you interviewed them, they were totally not what you preconceived. Has somebody ever fit that description where you, again, we'll say the murder was horrendous. It was like something that, kind of, and again, you went in there thinking this guy was going to be a monster, and this guy was totally not that. Has that ever happened or no?
Well, it may happen in the beginning of the interview or the first interview that you go, boy.
Well, you say it always comes out. It eventually comes out, is what you say?
Yeah. And, I don't want to brag, but I've been doing this a long time. And you get a good feel on how to, you're a former police officer. You understand how to interview people and perps. And,
right.
And, this idea of getting in their head, the key is just to get them talking. And the more they talk,
right,
the more they tell you. And the more they talk, the more opportunities. It's almost like I'll do an interview and he'll say something and I sort of tuck that away up here and wait for the right time for me to bring that back into the conversation. So I have.
Can you give an example? Can you give me an example of that?
Oh, for sure. So let's say the person, I'm interviewing someone. Let's say I'm interviewing a sex offender for a risk assessment. And
okay,
I can tell they're not, they're acting like, particularly in those, you'll get that right away, particularly first interview. They act very naive about all these things, and they might use a term. And let's say it's a term from the kink community, because my kids always laugh at me. They're like, Dad, you know about all the weird shit that people do in the world. And I'm like, yeah, it's my job. So he might use that term.
Right.
But the way he's presenting himself, this naive person who wouldn't know any of that kind of, kinky, weird stuff, I'll hold on to that term.
Now,
and then later I'll bring that back in.
Now hold that for 1 second, because that's interesting. Yeah. For people that are listening, because we do have a lot of people that are not law enforcement that are just kind of into this shit.
Yeah.
What is that to somebody who doesn't know?
Yeah.
What is the kink?
So, for example kink. Let's say bondage. S&M bondage. It's like kind of all.
Right.
People have. That's another thing about my job. I'm continuously fascinated by people's sexual appetites and what people are into. They'll tell you something you're into, and you're like, really? Okay, whatever floats your boat. But for example, the offender would use a term that's like a sadomasochism term. Then I'm like, if you're that naive, you're not going to know that term, So, and then, you bring that back in later. And that's good old forensic interviewing. You being a police officer, you're trained in forensic interviewing. When I was trained in my forensic program at Federal Bureau of Prisons, they pulled out some kind of, I can't remember the author, but it was one of the first police interrogation textbooks. And we had to read that and talk about that and try to use those techniques. And so you get better and better at those techniques as the year goes on, and you can really get to what you need to find out about a person when you get this far into it. So,
well, let me ask you a question again, because I kind of asked it before, and you kind of answered it anyway. But so you're saying there has never been a situation where you thought, this was one way, and this guy was totally not that way. It pretty much, by the time your techniques are done, it comes out.
I can tell you about a case early in my career. I had to interview this 19-year-old farm kid. We're talking all-American, blonde, good-looking kid, farm boy, who just one day decided to pull up and shoot his best friend and kill him. This kid never had any problems his whole life, and he was sort of kind of a little bit, just you wouldn't expect that he would do that. So him and I had conversations about what led him to just decide to just shoot his friend. And it just didn't all fit together. And that's about as close to what you're talking about. I don't feel like I've been fooled very often because, one misconception are that a lot of criminals are really sophisticated and they can do a number on the psychologist, and that's the stuff you see in fiction and on TV. But I always tell a lot of them, it's not quite like that, what you see on TV. So I never felt like I was really, like I've been fooled that often. Maybe I have, but sometimes it doesn't all fit together, and the presentation doesn't fit together until you get more and more information out of them and little nuggets you hold on to and you bring back in later to kind of open them up a little bit.
And what's funny, telling me about that farm boy case.
Yeah.
I would have bet my life you were going to say at some point that kid that he shot, his best friend, actually did something to him. Like, I don't know, I don't know. I was going to say doing something inappropriate or did something fucked up to him.
Yeah.
Where that's what, but you're saying that wasn't even the case. He just threw him away and that was it. It's
one of those cases from decades ago. I still can't wrap my head around. Why?
So at the end of the day, there was no rhyme or reason. He just did it.
All he said was, he's like, I thought, I wonder what that would be like. And I just pulled up on him and shot him. And then I thought I probably shouldn't have done that. And now my life is over. And it was like, that's one, you can usually put the pieces together and it sort of makes sense clinically, why this person would do this awful thing. That one doesn't make sense. And to this day, I'm still scratching my head about it. And that was a weird one for sure.
Did they psych him? Did he get psyched, or did he just go right to get regular jail time?
Regular jail time. And they kept him at our facility because they would we had the hospital there and the intake unit and all this other stuff. So we would kind of handpick the unit, the inmates that weren't going to cause us any problem. And this guy was a model inmate over the 2 years that I saw him walking around, working as a porter. That's a weird one that sticks with me. I don't know what to think about that one.
Can you imagine when you said it, just explain to that guy, good looking farm kid, blonde hair, blue eyes. Can you imagine what happened to that fucking guy in jail when he finally went?
I don't know. That's interesting, right? We had him at the good jail, or maybe, we had him at the good prison. But all these years of doing time, did that turn him into something?
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know.
Crazy.
Big mysteries.
Crazy.
Big mysteries. And I I don't see too many big mysteries nowadays, but that's still one that sticks with me. It's weird.
Yeah, we all have those. We always have those
For sure.
handful of ones, even as a cop or even doing the private investigating stuff. Sometimes there's always one or two that you're like, wow, yeah, I mean that's fucked up. So, anyhow, moving forward, I wanted to just, again, we have a lot of crossover here.
Yeah.
With the audience between entertainment, junkies as far as crime stories and stuff. I just wanted to mention some names and get your take, or what first thing that comes to your mind.
Yeah.
All right. And just off the head, right off the hip. Luigi Mangione.
I did a crime stories with Nancy Grace on that when that first happened. That, you want one word or do you want a little explanation?
Oh, no, explanation just off the top.
What was striking about that case right at the beginning was that this guy was working on his PhD in criminology. And he went in there and he tried to basically wipe his apartment to not leave any clues. And one of the points I made on Nancy's show, and also I did a YouTube video on it too on my YouTube channel, was you can study this stuff all you want, but particularly if this is your first murder, the law enforcement officers and detectives that are looking at this stuff, they see it every day. So I don't want to give any tips to aspiring criminals out there, but you can study this stuff all you want, and you can think you can cover your tracks. But I guarantee police officers and detectives who deal with this stuff every day, year in and year out, are going to find your mistake, because you're going to make a mistake. And I don't care how intellectual you are. The criminals that think they can outsmart the police. And he was one of those. And that hung him quick. I mean, it was.
Well, the funny thing is.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the funny thing is, three things, right? So you say he thinks and he did think he was smarter than the police.
Yeah.
First of all, why shoot the guy in fucking broad daylight, right? He was following him around from the hotel. I mean, he knew where he was. Why not wait until there was a better opportunity? I'm sure you've been casing the guy all day. At some point, you're gonna, again, New York's a little tough. Manhattan.
Yeah.
Or why wait till he's in Manhattan? Wait till he goes back to where he's from. Or anyhow, with that being said, he got caught at McDonald's, which is always fucking funny to me. Yeah. And again, didn't he have the evidence in his pocket or something in his pocket they found as well?
Yeah.
So
again, when you think you're smarter than the police, you are already lost, because you're going to be arrogant. You're going to make mistakes. There are cameras everywhere now. It's not a good time to be a criminal. There's cameras everywhere.
No.
I mean, I can't tell how many cases that we've talked about on TV and podcasts where, these guys are hooked up by cameras or their cell phone tracker. I mean, it's not an easy gig to be a criminal nowadays. And that case, the Mangione case, was interesting too, because one of the questions, because I remember I did a YouTube video on it right away, because it was like, all right, was this a hired hit? Was the big question. Well, hired hits, those are always local. If you're an ideological killer, like he was, you travel to the place to do the killing and then you leave. And by the way, that whole time you're doing that, you're leaving more clues. Where when it's a hit, it's someone that lives on the block and there's not much of a trail left. So it wasn't a hit. And I knew that right away, just from my experience. So yeah, when you think you're more smart than the police, you're already going to be caught. And that's Ted Bundy was one who thought he was smarter than the police. Smart guy.
Well, it's funny you said that, because that was going to be my next name.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, another guy who he's another case. It's so funny you bring these up, because I've done YouTube videos on these high IQ killers. I did. One of the problems with some of these high IQ killers, and I profiled a few of them. Bundy was one. One of the problems is they have narcissism, and narcissism trips them up every time. when they think they're smarter than the police, when they think they're so wonderful that no one could catch them, I mean, that they've already lost. I mean, it took a while to get a guy like Bundy, but eventually when you're so narcissistic and you know, the other thing they do, again, I don't want to give aspiring criminals tips, but when they overthink how to cover their tracks, they leave more evidence and more, you know, more clues. So,
yeah. It's crazy, right? The son of Sam.
Yeah. Well, that guy, I think that was a case of some pretty severe mental illness for sure. Right. But also, but also a lot of evidence of him being a psychopath as well. Two different things going on with this guy. Some mental illness and maybe some psychopathy too. So,
which is why I'm surprised they didn't catch him earlier than they did. If I remember, didn't he get caught by a car summons?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of good luck there, right?
Yeah,
but you know, we're talking technologies.
Yeah, I mean that's the '70s. I mean that's a whole different
'70s, and also I can tell you what too. You know, I've been a psychologist now since the early '90s. Just police training is better now than it was. Well, you went through training decades ago.
Oh yeah,
I mean, the training's so much better now.
Oh, keep it. Hey, wait. What do you mean decades ago? What are you trying to say?
I don't know how old you are. But,
what are you implying?
But
no, I'm kidding.
We're talking in terms of decades, which sucks.
No, I know. No, it is decades. It's because I became a cop in the '90s, and I was a cop before pre-cell phones. You know what I mean?
Right.
And pre-body cam, pre-cell phones, and again, cell phones actually ruined the police department. They really did because I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Right. I was in a busy precinct, and on a 4 to 12, that's always the busiest time of the day, 4 to 12s. That's where everything's going on. So we had a weekend in the summer in the projects, 1,000 things going on, right? So we get a call for kids selling dime bags on the corner.
All right.
So we pull up and we see them, right? So I didn't want to take myself out of patrol to arrest a kid with a dime bag. So I said, give me the stuff. He gives me the stuff. I throw it down the sewer. I said, get out of here. You know, and I got back in, and I said, there's nothing, Central's nothing here, and I took off. To me, that was good policing because it was bigger fish to fry. But now, can you imagine if somebody videoed me grabbing drugs and throwing it down the sewer? I would have been terminated. Yeah. But it's just a different time. But
when everything's under surveillance, body cam. I mean,
everything.
I could tell you, I worked in the prisons in the '90s, and I will say, people always ask me what it was like to work at prisons, and well, it's not an easy place to work, and all the correction officers didn't like when all the cameras came in because they weren't. Let me tell you, they weren't abusing inmates. There's enough abuse going around between the inmates, but sometimes I used to say, well, sometimes you might have to go outside of policy in order to maintain the order and security of the institution. And, but, kind of the idea that what's more important, picking up a kid with a bunch of dime bags or, somebody's going to be shooting somebody 3 blocks away. But everything is can be under scrutiny now. And who's scrutinizing that? Well, that's a whole other podcast probably, right?
Absolutely, without a doubt. And like I said, the kids today that became cops, if you're becoming a cop now, you don't know any better. You know what I mean? That's what it is.
That's true.
Where if you take all the guys from my time, put them in today's world, they'd all be fired with a week because they're different. But anyhow, with that being said, I'm stepping off topic, but Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah. I can tell you a lot about that.
Tell me about Jeffrey.
I could tell you.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I can tell you this. In early 2019, I got contacted by a television producer that said, hey, we're going to do a docuseries on this guy named Jeffrey Epstein. Now, he had not been arrested on federal charges at that point. And said, this guy got busted, kind of slap on the wrist. He had underage girls that he was messing around with. And we're going to do a docuseries for Netflix. Well, it became Jeffrey Epstein Filthy Rich. I actually did a video on this a couple weeks ago. So I was sent a lot of information. They had a private investigator working on the case. They had police reports, all this stuff. And then I was supposed to go down to Florida and shoot. We were going to shoot in front of his house and do some studio stuff. And he was arrested on a Saturday. Well, it was Friday. I was supposed to shoot that coming Wednesday. And I got a text from the producer that says, hey, I'm getting tipped off that he's getting arrested on federal charges. Call it off to shoot for Wednesday. He got arrested the next day. And then everything changed. Trying to figure out, what narrative they were going to do. But what's interesting to me is now when I'm reading and hearing what's going on in the media, when Epstein was arrested and all this stuff, some of the information that I learned is missing.
Right.
And I'm like,
yeah.
And I worked for the federal government. So my take was there was a lot going on there, a lot of moving parts. And all I'll say is what I knew about Epstein, I don't think he was anything special. I think he was a rich guy who's, pervert, liked younger girls. And that's it. A lot of it's being glamorized because, he hung around with celebrities, with politicians. So that stuff's all being glamorized. But when I first read the case early on, it wasn't impressive to me for the stuff that I've seen, But now, blown all over the place. But, I wonder, I don't want to say too much, but there's a lot more going on there behind the scenes than the actual, this is a rich guy who molested, teenage girls. There's a lot more behind this case that I don't even think we know about. And I think, I'm just gonna leave it at that. That makes sense.
What is your psychological profile of him? Do you think he's a narcissist?
Well, that's what's fun because my original job on that series, we're going to do a psychological profile on him, of everything we knew about him.
Right.
And then after everything went down and shit hit the fan, probably a couple of months later, the producer called me up and they said, hey, we're not going to do this psychological profile anymore. Thanks for all your work on it. We're not going to do this. I was doing an analysis of kind of his psychological profile and how did this fit in with the crime. So we did kind of a behavioral analysis of the crime. We were going to do all that. None of that moved forward. Yeah, I mean, when you are that rich and you're walking around with celebrities and politicians, you tend to think you're a little bit more special than everybody else. And I think you feel like you have a license to maybe do things that you just assume you'll get away with because you have a lot of money. And I think that's what happened with these young girls and some of the other stuff that he was into. Again, when I read the original crime, it wasn't that impressive to me compared to what I've seen. But I think there's a whole other thing going on with Epstein that has nothing to do with him, molesting these teenage girls that I don't even know if that'll ever come out.
Right. Well, you segue when you talk about rich and powerful and walking around like who they are and what have you. What is your take on P-Diddy?
Well, again, it's probably sort of the same thing. I mean, when you have people that worship you and you don't live in the reality that you know about this, you work with these folks. Sometimes you don't live in the reality that the rest of us live in. And I wonder if that gets you warped. Right. You are of your whole world. You can do what you want. And sometimes any little weird fantasy, little weird thing that you want to do, it's there available to you. And you don't really think about the consequences because you're so insulated, right? You have so many yes people around you, so many people that are going to cover for you because their livelihood depends on it. You can get away with a lot. And maybe, I don't know, the thing is too with these sexual addiction type stuff and these sexual things, these people, and even not the rich and famous, but even the regular common people that I see that get caught up in this, They have a little fantasy about something twisted they want to do. They do that. Well, then they got to up the ante. Then they got to up the ante because it's not as, titillating or gratifying, and they keep upping the ante, upping the ante. Well, if you're insulated from the protection of being a celebrity or having a lot of money, you just keep cranking it up, more twisted, more taboo, to the point where someone finds out. I don't know, maybe that's what happened with him. I don't know a lot about the case. I don't know P-Diddy, but just that dynamic of you're so well insulated, protected, you can, if you have some sort of twisted sexual proclivities, you can start to do those, and then you just keep cranking it up. I don't know. And then throw a bunch of drugs in there too, right? So.
Right. Well, like I said, I never, and again, I've been around like A-list to the A-list.
Yeah.
And I never could get like when you could just do anything you want, right?
Yeah, do anything you want.
Like DiCaprio, anything, but he's fine. He's not wrong. I mean, he's, but the point, what I'm saying is why, I mean, again, you probably answered the question. If you could do anything you want, you can fly anywhere you want at any time you want, fuck whoever you want.
Yeah.
If you want to bang 3 chicks, whatever, it's there for you. It's there for you. Why do you have to get that ante up? You know what I mean? If you want 10 chicks to come over, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
the thing is, right?
That I can't get.
Yeah. So the whole idea is that if you have this fantasy, this idea, and then you do it, and then you sort of become satiated, if your thing is to have three chicks at one time, and you do that 10 days in a row, what's next? What's going to get me excited next? It's like
you got to bring a gorilla in. You need the gorilla to come.
Back in the non-celebrity world, like these child porn guys I see, they have they start out with a little bit of child porn, and then they get satiated. It's not as exciting anymore. Then they got to move into more extreme stuff, and then they start chatting online with people, and they have to increase that because they get satiated. It's no longer fulfilling or exciting for them. They need more and more and more. And maybe that same dynamic goes on with celebrities in the way, particularly with the sexual things that they do. I don't know.
Yeah. No, again, that's another thing. I mean, child porn. I mean, is that something that's, again, I guess it's almost like if you're gay, heterosexual, I guess that's something you're just born with, right? I mean, I can't ever look at a 5-year-old and be like, wow, that's, you know what I mean? I don't, is that something that's
there's a lot of
born with?
Well, that's interesting too, because, the research is still trying to catch up. I mean, we've had child porn forever, but in the past 15 years, flick on your phone, you could find it. There's different types of people that are into that. If we're talking pedophiles, people's whole sexual attraction is towards children. Yeah, there's some research that talks about you're just sort of wired that way. But the other part that you find is you'll find people that aren't necessarily pedophiles, but they need something that's so taboo that they know is wrong, and that increases the excitement. And for some of them, child porn offers that opportunity, So there's different, what I'm getting at is there are a lot of different types of people who get caught up in that. Some of them are wired that way, particularly these, they're called exclusive pedophiles in the research, that kids are their only thing. They're not going to change. I mean, when I had to do treatment with them, I would be kicking them out of treatment because I'd say, no, you're an exclusive pedophile. The only thing we can do is teach you how to be non-sexual, because you're not going to convert over to adults. It's sort of wired in for you.
Right. Now, do you think is because it's taboo, or do you think it's just because? Here's one. Now, do you think that they don't feel secure enough to be with an adult, somebody their own age, or is that just? Again, I guess you could figure, I guess you could surmise any which way.
There's a body of research on different types of pedophiles. There's what's called the regressed pedophile. It's an old term from early in the research about pedophiles, where they emotionally cannot connect with adults, but they can connect with children emotionally. And then, so they connect with children, and then they end up moving that relationship into a sexual relationship. That's a regressive pedophile. An exclusive pedophile, there were some great studies done in the early 80s where, have you ever heard of the plethysmograph? It's called the P graph, where they would study sexual arousal. They could study sexual arousal and, let's get real graphic here, how much blood flow goes to your genitals, right? And they would do these studies where they would hook guys up and put things on screens and see what got the most response. Well, there were a certain subgroup, and when they would do this, guys who were gay would respond to male erotic stimuli. And even the outlines, the silhouettes of the body, they found this subset that when they put up just silhouettes of children, they would have more of a physiological response without any context except an image that was a drawing. And these guys would have a response, a physiological response. They'd get an erection.
It's crazy.
They could measure it. So, yeah, wild stuff. So I think there's a subset that are just kind of biologically wired that way. And how do you treat those guys, right?
Well, here's an interesting question. And then I can't believe we're almost 40 minutes in because we have a 40-minute thing. Wow. This is probably one of my quickest interviews. Was Elvis a pedophile?
Oh, wow. Well, because he got with Lisa Marie when she was like 13.
Yeah, nobody even talks about that.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Okay, here's the other thing that is a misconception that you see out in the media and out in the world. The definition of a pedophile is they are sexually attracted to prepubescent children. Kids arriving at puberty. Now, these sort of Lolita chasers, right? Guys who are into teenage girls, that's different than a pedophile. And sometimes you'll meet these guys in the old literature, in the old research literature, they'd call them polymorphic perverse. They liked everything. Kids, they liked everything. And that's a rare animal. Every once in a while, when they do a sex offender risk assessment, I'll see a guy that is just kind of attracted to everything. That's not a good sign as far as risk assessment goes. But they're a pretty rare breed. You don't see a lot of those. So maybe I was just like teenage girls rather than little kids. There's a big difference.
Right. No, I laugh at that because a lot of my friends are real big Elvis fans. And it's just funny, and nobody ever say anything because it was Elvis. You know what I mean? If it was Elvis, the Federal Express guy, it might have been a big issue. But,
it was Elvis. It would be an issue for sure, right?
Yeah, nobody acknowledges it because it was Elvis. But before we go, Jeff, because like I said, this was great. Again, I can't believe how fast time has gone.
Yeah.
How do people find you?
Yeah.
That are listening, that want to follow Jeff, Dr. Jeff, and either follow your stuff or reach out? How do they do that?
Well, so the main way is I started a YouTube channel a couple of years ago, and that thing's as a social media, you have to be dedicated to it, and sometimes I'd have some lapses, but I just went over 10,000 subscribers.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, the YouTube channel, Dr. Jeff Kieliszewski, forensic psychologist. And I put some lectures on there I did years ago, some of my TV stuff. And then I have some videos, real technical terms about forensic psychology. One of them is, how do I become a forensic psychologist? And then some of them I'm starting to move more into kind of current cases. Like I did a couple, the last couple weeks on the Epstein case. I did one, actually I posted one today on a stabbing that occurred in northern Michigan at a Walmart store. I don't know if you heard about that. That was pretty bad. But that's the best way to find me. And then I'm on all the social media, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and X. And if you can spell that or write down that funny Polish name and you plug that in, you should be able to find me. So that's probably the best way. The YouTube channel is if people are interested in this topic, you go there and there's a lot of stuff on there. And I'm going to be more dedicated to putting weekly stuff on now because people are giving me a lot of good feedback on it. I don't really think there's a lot of practicing forensic psychologists who are doing a lot of that. There are people that...
No, it's a great niche.
Yeah, I mean, there are academics that can go on there, or people that call themselves criminal psychologists, whatever that means. But I mean, I do this stuff every day. I have an active practice. I'm busy. People keep mistreating each other. So I've got a lot of business, you know.
Yeah, you'll never go out of business. You'll never go out of business.
That's the best way to find me. Yeah.
Awesome. And again, well, you know, I'm going to connect with you as well.
Yeah.
On Instagram. And and we'll reach out. And like I said, this episode will be out in about 2-3 weeks.
All right.
And listen, thank you so much.
Yeah.
For coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
I got to be honest with you. Sometimes when I hear, you had a forensic psychologist coming on, I think, boring. What a drab. And you know what? This was nothing. I learned a lot. This was fun. And I think, people are going to get a kick out of this because, again, like we discussed earlier, sometimes you have a preconception of what things are going to be. And, this was amazing. So I thank you so much. And again, please don't be a stranger. Anything comes out, you need us to push, I absolutely will.
Oh.
One more time. Ready? I'm going to try it.
All right.
Dr. Jeff Kieliszewski.
Oh, that is good. Look at that.
Was it good? Was it good?
Oh, yeah. You were right on, man. You were right on.
There you go. Well,
thanks for having me on.
I had...
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
And
nice
like I said...
just to kind of kick back and talk about things rather than sort of teach or give a prepared statement. You know what I mean?
Yeah, people, again, I'm not going to say that. I'm not saying people don't find that interesting. It's totally interesting. But once in a while, it's good just to go back and forth and shoot the shit, and people like that better. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm not able to do that a lot, so that's cool. So I appreciate having me on.
No, very cool. Very cool. And again, thank you so much. We are Bulletproof Podcast. I'm Steve Stanulis. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Believe. Thank you for making our show number 1 on Spotify, number 8 on Apple Podcasts. And again, it's not because of me. It's for guests coming on like Dr. Jeff. And again, check us out. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
And that's Bulletproof, your source for celebrity crime investigations. Subscribe for new episodes. Send celebrity scandal tips. Follow us on Instagram at Bulletproof True Crime Podcasts for exclusive content. This is Steve Stanulis. I'm keeping you bulletproof against all celebrity lies.